to call the meeting to order. Tonight is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. We ask that you just silence all cell phones for duration of the meeting. Could I have a motion to officially open the meeting?
Second.
Do a roll call.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item is our consent agenda. Everything listed in the consent agenda was distributed in advance of the meeting. Does anyone have any requests for something to be removed from the consent agenda and discussed or voted on separately? May I have a motion to approve and accept the items listed in the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We'll do a roll call.
And Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes.
And Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Do we have anyone signed up for delegation? So I don't see any old business. So Dr. Bailey, I'll turn it over to you for new business.
First up, we have the Ford Middle School Discovery Grant, and I would ask Ms. Ruggieri, our Director of Curriculum, to come on up and present the grant that we have and all the wonderful things that we're doing in middle school.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the school committee. I'm also calling up Michelle Sylvia, the FMS principal. So we're here to announce our acceptance of the Applied Learning Leadership Discovery Program grant, which is a grant that is funded through the 1-8 Foundation. And we're very excited about this opportunity for the Ford Middle School. So just a little bit about applied learning. There are the 5 core tenets of applied learning are that the learning possesses meaningful real-world problems, and it pairs content with skills. So it's not just content memorization, but that students are gaining soft skills as well. It requires iteration and persistence. It prioritizes collaboration and communication, and it provides a professional frame for the work that the students are doing. So when they're doing this type of learning, they're acting as a professional in the field might act. When they're in science, they are acting as a scientist. They're running experiments, inquiry-based learning, running trials, collecting data, acting as a scientist. When they're in social studies, they may be acting like an archaeologist and doing that type of work. So we currently already have some applied learning programs at Ford Middle School. We've been adopting them over the course of the last few years. We started with Open SciEd, which we have the science curriculum for grades 6 through 8. We're in year 1 of the Democratic Knowledge Project civics curriculum. And then we've just been accepted to the Leadership Discovery Program. That's what we're presenting on tonight. So there's 700 schools in the state of Massachusetts that have accepted 1-8 grant funding for applied learning, and we are one of 20 teams that were selected to participate in this grant because the 1-8 Foundation has been coming out, looking at the work that we've been doing, implementing these programs, and they feel as though we're doing it with great fidelity and that our teachers are really rising to the challenge, and that they're challenging the students and applying those 5 tenets in just such a beautiful way that they have come out. We've had other schools come to visit. We actually are a model for this applied learning. So we're really excited about that. So the key objectives of the Applied Learning Discovery Program is that it would allow our leadership team to explore strong applied learning practices. And we can reflect on opportunities to bring these practices back to our schools so that even though we have these DKP and open SciEd curriculum, but that we're applying this type of learning to all subject areas and not only those where we have had the specific training in those curriculum programs. So extending that into ELA and math and other subject areas. So we'll be doing school visits to other schools that have applied learning taking place. And this is to spur new thinking and for us to determine steps that we can take to implement these strategies further within our school. And the 1-8 Foundation covers the costs associated with the program participation. So the program that we're participating in, the Discovery Program, it started in January with a virtual kickoff. And then in February, just last week, we went to 2 different school visits, one at Randolph Middle School and another at Boston Collegiate in Dorchester, in the Boston area. And we were able to visit multiple classrooms. We were with teams from the 19 other school districts. We were just making great connections with other school districts, hearing about the great work that they're doing in their districts, gaining ideas of what we can bring back. Looking at some really engaging student learning taking place. So it was really an amazing opportunity to see what other schools are doing. And then in April, we'll also have a visit where we'll be going out of state to Denver, Colorado, and we'll be observing schools in the Denver area. And that's a 2-day visit in April. And then in May, we'll have a reflection on learning opportunity. And I did miss picture retake day, so please. But this is our team. We have Allison here. I'm going to let you actually introduce the team.
So Ali Bilauer is our FMS math interventionist. We brought her along. Our science teachers are already in the thick of this. They're actually presenting at Community Day for Open SciEd in March for all the Open SciEd educators across the state. They'll be presenting there, so that's fabulous. Our 8th grade civics teacher, Karen Bentley, is also part of the DKP program, and she's also called upon for her expertise and knowledge in the assessment area. So we want to bring it to other areas. So
Excuse
the
me
math.
1 second. We also had a student last spring
Yes.
go to the state with the DKP.
So with our civic showcase last year,
Yep.
we had our school one. Then we had a state one at Bridgewater State College. And then from there, we had one individual who went to the National Social Science Convention in November in Boston, and she presented there as well with, with the DKP curriculum. So it's really getting us places and bringing us out there. So we're like, who do we bring on the team? We're going to go with our math. And we did observe some math classrooms last week. Christine Dimmer is our academic coach, who is a big help in implementing it and bringing it down and really getting into the classrooms, giving suggestions. The health teacher went in and observed Open SciEd and all of their thinking practices. We have other individuals in the school going to other classrooms to observe, the thinking processes going on. And then Angie and I as well.
Yeah, and I do think that part of our success with all of the 1-8 applied learning that we put in place has had a lot to do with our academic coach. So I do want to recognize that because she has also been attending the trainings and then delivering that to the teachers and helping them. It has not been a small ask what the teachers have done to implement a full new curriculum in such a timely manner and to do it just so, I guess it seems seamlessly to us, but I know for them it has been a heavy lift, but they've had a lot of coaching support, and that's where the coaching comes in to help support that in other areas, in other subject areas where the 1-8 Foundation may not have currently, at least, grant opportunities. So what is the 1-8 Foundation? They are a venture philanthropy and consultancy group. They seek to transform classrooms in Massachusetts alongside educator partners to provide 21st century learning opportunities to students. And so they are providing very high quality professional learning opportunities to our educators for free. And this is on open source or very low cost standards-based curriculum. So this is another piece that we really like about it, is that they are giving us the training on the high quality, low cost curriculum, because we know how expensive curriculum can be. And so if we can take the time and really learn about and implement some good high quality, free open source curriculum, then that's an amazing opportunity. And when we're talking about them providing us professional development, we're talking about, you know, thousands of dollars worth of professional development. And so here is just how we're aligning this to the APS district strategic plan. Any questions?
How was this found? Was it through research, through, what was it?
We do a lot of listening and digging as we go places throughout the state, and I tend to watch other school committees and see what other schools are doing. And I knew a local school was doing this. We went and observed them open site the year before. We worked with their team. We're like, okay, we're going to go for it. We're going to go for the grant. And then because we stay involved and we have the coaches come to us and ask, you know, and say, do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? Why not? The grant gives us the professional development in depth, in great detail, 2 days professional development, 3 times a year. It's nothing.
Right, so for each unit that a teacher is about to teach, a new unit in a curriculum, they'll have the teachers go to a 2-day professional development or 3, or whatever it might be, but like an in-depth, and the teachers actually are acting as the students at these professional development opportunities, and they have somebody modeling what the teacher does and how they deliver the unit. So they're getting that student experience, and then they're also kind of seeing what the teacher is doing. And then on top of that, we then have our coach who is available to help them unpack the units here. That's an additional step that we're doing that's not necessarily a part of the grant, but that the coach works with the teachers to help them unpack and prepare for the units. So yeah, it's been pretty good. And now we're at the point where 1-8 Foundation reaches out to us. So they'll say, they just got us the other day, actually, they said, we have another grant opportunity, are you going to apply?
So we did.
So we did, and we're waiting to hear back on that.
And you know, as Ms. Ruggieri mentioned, we know that the cost of curriculum is high, so anytime we can get these free open source curriculum, and if it's high quality, and we have the teachers buying in, the kids love it, because it's a lot of hands-on applied learning, so they're loving it. Another way we find out about these things is through our professional development. So when we go to conferences, we are constantly looking for these opportunities for our students in our district. So I have to give a huge shout out to the teachers, to the administrators, the coach, everyone who's been involved, because it seems like we did one and then it just, you know, it was contagious, the excitement. We did another one, and now, you know, we're on the 3rd one, and teachers seem really happy about it. So,
Question. Where does the funds originate for these grants?
It's with the 1-8 Foundation, and it's
It's a
a
private foundation?
private foundation, so they receive donations.
Just one, like, I think the buy-in coming from the teacher part of me is the professional development that comes with it. So often, like, we come into the school year and there's a pile of curriculum on my desk and it's like, here you go, this is your new ELA, this is your new, so that's why you have the buy-in. You have the buy-in because you're providing all those opportunities.
that's right.
So like, I think if
It's
like you keep
localized.
doing that, it's incredible. Like, I would buy into that, to have a lesson shown to me before
Yes.
I do it,
Yes.
and what it's supposed to look like.
And they
That's
come
why
in-
you have the
They come in
buy-in.
and watch us, and they come
Right.
in and, they
Coach
tour
you.
us and give us feedback, and it is a complete hands-on.
I love that.
Endeavor, it is.
And I also
That's
give
hard to come by.
Principal Sylvia kudos as well, because the teachers are now watching each other.
Yeah.
They're doing observations of each other. It's really
I love
come full
that.
circle with this curriculum, so thank you for all
Because the
that.
purchase of the curriculum is one thing, but then the added
Training.
professional development, the level of PD that
And
we wanted to give to our science teachers on our old curriculum wouldn't have even, it would have been a small fraction of the
Yeah.
number of days, and we were looking at $20,000.
And you think about those
We can't-
PDs to train you, those are more of a sales pitch than they are training. For
Mhm.
us, that's what in my
Yes,
20 years of
yes.
teaching, that's what it's been. It's been more of a sales
Mhm.
pitch to teach. It's not how to do it, it's
No,
what
it's-
you need to do. So it's great. I love that idea. That's awesome.
So just from a budget standpoint and just from, reminiscing from, 5-6 years back. So Michelle, you as the principal got information about this curriculum, and then you told our curriculum director, who's a full-time curriculum director, about this program, and then both of you were able to collaborate, and you were still able to be a principal and do your portion and still make this happen because we have a full-time curriculum director. Because if we didn't have a full-time curriculum director, this never would have come to fruition. And that's what I'd like to just let the audience know this, is that, I'm sure in the past, like I said, when I got on 10 years ago, we had a part-time curriculum director who wasn't able to bring any new curriculum, any new anything, not even review the curriculum that we currently had, because they were too busy doing their other job that they were doing. And that's why it was so important to make the money available to have a full-time director, curriculum director, to come in and make these programs available to our students.
And to have the full-time academic coach as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
huge.
Because
The whole support team.
the whole support team,
Right.
yes. I can learn as much as I can, but if I miss getting into that classroom because something else came up
Because
that
you're
I
a
need to
principal?
attend, yes.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
So, when they come in from DKP or 1A, and I know that Christine Demers will take them through if I can't, and it works seamlessly. Yes.
I would add too that it's another example, success story of our leadership here plugging into other networks, right, through their own professional development opportunities.
Absolutely.
You guys have demonstrated time and time again of either a free curriculum coming forward or, a grant opportunity like this because you went to your own professional development and did your own work, right, to plug into what other districts are doing. And that's so important, that lunge, that you guys are doing. So I just want to underscore that too, that, having money in your budget to allow our leadership to have their own professional development is also really important.
And that's why we're here,
Successful
right, is to
school district.
educate our students. And if we don't have that cutting-edge, cost-effective programming, we just get stagnant and our students won't go anywhere. And we already saw that 10, 15 years ago where nobody was moving forward, and now we're seeing that, and just kudos to you for
And I
making
can
that all
just add
happen.
to that prior to me coming, there was a report from Desi that Acushnet was not paying attention to teaching and learning in the curriculum. And it's the opposite now, that you see the status quo is not happening here in Acushnet. I feel like these ladies and the team has put Acushnet on the map. I can tell you that Acushnet gets less money per pupil spending, right, for each student, and yet we're still outperforming the state. That is because of the good work that the team is doing. So I want to thank you again. We have some very hardworking people in this district, very hardworking. I mean, I always see them here late. So I just want to thank you because I see the difference it's making in the school as well with our students. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. If you need any school committee members to go to Denver, there's probably a couple volunteers.
We did say we wish we could bring more people
Yes, we
because
did,
it's
yes.
really something to see.
It is.
Yeah, but
Well, I'll keep
we'll be able to
asking.
showcase it
Don't worry,
here.
I'll keep
Look
asking.
forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep reporting back.
Thank you, ladies. Next up, I'd like to call Patrick McIntyre, our business manager, up. We have the Air Environment Quality Project, and we have representatives here from Trane, but I will have him introduce the representatives here from Trane.
All right, good evening, school committee.
As you all know, we've been working on performance contracting over the last, I don't know, feels like a year and a half or so anyway, in order to address some of the concerns that we have in our school buildings. We wanted to bring the conversation back to light publicly to highlight the project now that we've received a final investment grade audit on the project, and talk about next steps before we enter into a phase where we start planning our public hearings and joint meetings with the board, select board and finance committee. So this is a little bit of a refresher. There's going to be time for a Q&A at the end. If anybody has any questions or just looking for updates on the status of the project, the timeline of the project, so on and so forth. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Morgan Paris and Max Ma from Train Technologies, who have conducted the investment grade audit. And then we also have Beth Greenblatt from Beacon Integrated Services, who's remote. And she's going to be unmuted for the presentation in case she wants to chime in, as well as for the Q&A towards the end. So thank you.
And just to clarify, Beth is our consultant for the district who's really been helping us and steering us with this project. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee. And thank you for the introduction, Mr. McIntyre. And thank you very much to Dr. Bailey for her support throughout this entire process. As we've already had a fantastic introduction by Mr. McIntyre, but we started really engaging with the Acushnet Public Schools towards the middle of last year. And our primary goal was really to investigate opportunities in your buildings to create safer, more efficient, and more comfortable spaces. So that's really the mindset that we came in with, in figuring out how we can do that in the most cost-effective and streamlined way. So today I have a quick agenda of introducing the project team, both on the Acushnet side and the Train side, talking a little bit about the why and getting a little bit more detailed into why we were brought to the table. Give you a schedule update on what we've done thus far and where we are now. Do a quick review of the results of our investment grade audit and what we found as some initial scope items that we think need to be addressed. A review of the financials and budgets, and then closing with community benefits and a Q&A. If that works, we'll dive right into it. As I already mentioned, Dr. Bailey, Mr. McIntyre, and obviously Ms. Greenblatt have been super supportive of and really integral to the entire process of getting the necessary information so that we could do a proper analysis of what the existing situation here is at Acushnet. On the Train team, it's primarily myself, Morgan Paris, Energy Services Account Executive. I'm essentially the project lead, so I have dealt with the project and kind of walked it from start to finish as it relates to scope development, energy savings, really understanding customer goals, and all the way to financials and hopefully contract execution. And I have Max Ma here with me. Max, you want to introduce
My name
yourself?
is Max Ma. Good evening. I'm a project developer with Train. I work together with Morgan to make sure that the customer receives information on the best solution that also considers financial aspects, including any applicable incentives, any ongoing rebates from the utilities, any other considerations with regard to the building, which is specific to the project.
Max is the smart one. So the why of why we're here today and what really our goal was going in is primarily looking at the indoor environment and making sure that when we were looking at opportunities for improvement in these buildings, we were specifically targeting solutions that would bring the indoor environmental quality up to really good standards. Specifically at Acushnet Elementary School with the humidity concerns was our number one. After that, it was really addressing long-term infrastructure needs, so related to the physical heating plant, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, and building management controls, because those really all tie in together to also create a proper indoor environment that's both safe and comfortable. Part of that is when you do number one and number two, you extend building longevity. So you create buildings that can last for many, many years and are inhabitable and really conducive to good learning environments, and fantastic programs like the one that was mentioned before ours that really create students that are making better in the world. Optimizing green communities funding was also something that we were focused on. We understand that Acushnet is a green community and really wants to continue through the Green Communities program, which requires a certain amount of energy reductions over a couple years. Addressing deferred maintenance was also clearly something that was core to this project, and over time, a desire to reduce energy consumption and demand. So I mentioned we started this last year, a little earlier in last year, February 2024. So I have in the bucket, in the box where we are now, towards the bottom. So we've been through a rigorous bidding process through a request for qualifications through the DOER. We were selected as the energy services company in May of 2024 by Acushnet Public Schools. We entered into an investment grade audit in July, started developing those detailed scope of improvements July to August, engaged stakeholders, and that's really kind of still the process that we're in right now in deciding on that firm scope of work and defining ultimately a project that we can bring to town meeting to hopefully have pushed forward. So that's the current state, and hopefully the goal is to move forward with a project that works for everyone and has the full support of both the school committee here and also the folks at the town as well. Once the project and the contract is executed, we would immediately move towards implementation and construction. Depending on the timeline of that, construction could be either this summer or next summer. With lead times, it is kind of changing rapidly. So it'll be more of an on-the-go decision of when we are able to move forward with construction. And then once construction is complete, it's all about maintenance and measurement and verification of savings, so making sure we're keeping up to date with proper maintenance of the systems. Throughout the investment grade audit, we investigated a number of comprehensive measures. So this is just a quick snapshot of everything our team looked into, Max and folks, when we walked through both of your school buildings. It was everything from lighting and building envelope upgrades and controls all the way down to solar renewable energy systems, transformer upgrades, and air purification measures. So we really looked at a lot, not just things that would save you energy, but also things that would make your buildings better and safer and more comfortable. So we targeted a bunch, hoping that we could really provide you with solutions that worked for you. A targeted project is what came out of this. So I'll go through a couple different items that are included in that targeted indoor air quality improvement project. But the first is what really is the main component of that, which is indoor air quality improvements for Acushnet Elementary School. And that's made up of variable refrigerant flow heat pump systems and integrated controls. And what that's going to do is really help temper the indoor environment and make it so that it's not so humid. And really create not just a Band-Aid solution, but a long-lasting solution for a comfortable environment in the elementary school. It also includes electrical infrastructure upgrades and structural upgrades that are needed in order to make these adjustments to the school building. So we took all of that into consideration. And also, as a note, as part of this, because we're putting equipment on the roof, it was brought to our attention that the roof warranty was a question and a concern. We've reached out to multiple roofing companies that are certified in Mulehide systems, which is the product, which is where the roof manufacturer's warranty lies. And as long as we're working with a roofing company that is certified in that material, they will maintain the roofing warranty. So we're confident that our solution will be acceptable. Did you have anything else to add here?
No, that covers it. So basically, my analogy would be if you purchase a new vehicle, as long as you service the vehicle at a dealership that's the same brand, right? You don't necessarily have to go back to the vehicle's original manufacturer, even though you may prefer that, right? So we have other options. Basically, the warranty is with the product, and we have checked with our partners, we have checked with our internal teams, so we are confident that we have multiple options. So we're comfortable on that front.
And also in just talking about this solution here today too, we did not immediately jump to this solution as the ultimate one. We evaluated multiple different options, and at the end of the day, taking into consideration the long-term solution, the cost and the efficiency, and the available funds and rebates attached to this solution, this one came out on top. So there was a lot of consideration that went into selecting this as the targeted project. And tailored with that, I also mentioned building management systems. So this is really adding intelligent building controls to these new and existing systems that are planned for installation. That is taking out obsolete controllers, so controllers that you can no longer find parts for or do software upgrades on. It's including funds to upgrade some failed equipment. So we're going to put our new controls on this piece of equipment. What if then we realize that one small piece of the equipment is failed? Well, we've included some additional funds in order to cover some of those replacements that are needed afterwards. And this system, this control system is actually required in order to get mass save funds for the initial VRF heat pump system. So it is really a package deal and provides the maximum incentives in order to buy down the initial costs of the project for you all. Now next on the list is building envelope improvements. This was a big one that came up as part of our investigations during the investment grade audit. I think you guys remember us coming in and talking about this last time. And that's really tightening up the building envelope so that you can really improve the air circulation and control of the indoor air quality in the building already. So it essentially keeps the air from coming outside in and keeps our healthy, clean air from going outside, right? Which makes it more efficient and easier to control, decreasing both infiltration and exfiltration. And there's a couple pictures and photos showing places between the roof and the wall and between the doors where we can make those improvements. Oh, and I think that was my video, but we don't need to do that. Duct sealing, this is also a way for us to both save energy and make some improvements into the indoor air quality. So really you have these long runs of duct and you have naturally some leaks that happen over time. So this duct sealing is a way to go in and seal up some of those leaks so that you're not wasting energy and wasting good, clean, controlled air where you don't have to. And it does that in a couple different ways. But it's a pretty interesting new type of product that is doing this in a really, really great way. And we also have some coating of the existing hot water coils that will provide additional benefits that just make the coils last longer. Do you have anything else to add?
No. That captures it. Well, I would also mention that duct sealing is also a way to make sure that the delivered air, right, conditioned air goes where it's intended to go, because if it goes into unconditioned spaces, it could exacerbate problems such as humidity, right, condensation in unwanted spaces. So it's both from a comfort, energy efficiency perspective as well as preservation of the building, prolonging the life of the building.
Mm-hmm. Are we going at a good pace? Does anyone have any questions? No?
That's good.
Okay. Right. Air purification, also similarly an indoor air quality improvement, so really creates additional safety measures within the air handlers, which are sitting in the kind of mezzanine of the building. Active filtration of the air coming through the air handler before it enters the duct and ultimately enters into the classroom. I think that's as seamlessly as I can explain that, but if you have any other.
Yeah, this is essentially a centralized solution to the existing solution of having in-room air purifiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this solution makes sure that, for one, maintenance is centralized, right, which is a big benefit, and also is energy efficient. It sits in the space of the existing air filter. It has its own low power source to ionize the filter and capture contaminants to a efficiency MERV 14 equivalent performance, which essentially means it can capture really small particles and therefore providing cleaner air to the classrooms.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, kitchen walk-in, both refrigeration and coolers is a scope of work that we've looked at as well. It's 5 total proposed systems in both schools. And really the improvements here are increased insulation, ECM motors, which are more efficient type of motors, evaporator fan controls, LED lighting, demand controlled for both the electric defrost and the door heaters. The doors were just found, the whole walk-ins were found to be just really aged and requiring more than just maintenance or a simple renovation. So we looked at full replacement here and can definitely quantify savings from what's existing to what we would be able to improve and replace it with. And then lastly, here's the slide just summarizing the financials for both projects. So you have the indoor air quality project on top, totaling a not to exceed of $4.2 million. We're currently working with Eversource on finalizing what the incentives might look like, both partnering with Eversource and a technical assistance vendor who's double checking and essentially verifying the work that we've done and is attempting to give us a pre-study understanding of what an incentive might look like. So they have all of the information right now. They're just, I think, churning in the back to figure out how much they're willing to give. But that will hopefully buy down the cost of that 4.2. If we estimate it somewhere up to 500,000, that would bring it down to 3.7 after incentives and rebates. We also applied for a Green Communities grant for this, the decarbonization grant. Because of the technology that was selected for the project, it allowed us to apply, and that could be somewhere between 250,000 to 500,000 there as well. We have not heard back on whether Acushnet has been selected yet, still waiting, but fingers crossed, hopefully that gets added to the list as well. And then there's also the Green School Works implementation funding project that is specifically focused on funding these types of projects as well. So decarbonization focused projects where you're installing VRF heat pumps is something that complies. And it also supports the necessary electrical upgrades that would need to be done, which is something that we've considered as well. So they would help financially support not just the project, but also essentially the ancillary work needed to support the project too. And then the kitchen refrigeration project is down in the bottom right. Summarized that it's 461, 150 for all 5 at the 2 schools. And that, we've been told, is to be funded via available food service program funds that are already in hand and ready to be spent. So really the contract and this energy management services agreement provides the opportunity to do either and both, if possible, of these projects. So having the contract available, having a project move forward allows you the opportunity to do amendments or future projects through the same agreement. It is available via the legislation for up to 20 years. So that makes it just more flexible, easier to use, so that you can amend it for future. And then lastly, just to summarize the fiscal, social, and environmental benefits of a project like this, really fiscal is, these are needed upgrades where you're spending, and your staff really are spending time and energy to walk through each classroom, to let out filters and let out condensate that's doing the work in each classroom versus pulling together a customized solution that is central for all of the building. So it's really a fiscally responsible way to approach this, taking into account incentives and also energy savings. For socially, it's improving the indoor air quality of the schools. Naturally, we want to create really healthy spaces for students to be learning in, positively impacting comfort. And then lastly, it's environmental. So this is a type of technology that the state of Massachusetts is really excited about for its environmental benefits. So that will allow us to measurably reduce the utility consumption in your buildings and really look at the greenhouse gas emissions that will come from displacing some of those fossil fuels. And I think that's all we had. We'll open the floor to Q&A.
I have a couple. So first, can we implement, I think you mentioned this already, but you can implement the project in phases to see like partial implementation solves the problem and then like go on to the next step, or is it something that we have to do all at once?
The legislation certainly does allow for a phased approach. But I would say naturally, for some of these, the longer that you wait, there are increases in both equipment and labor. So there is something such as not only, time of money, but also economies of scale as well. So if you take a comprehensive approach to addressing multiple pieces all at once, that does provide some additional benefits, but there's also the benefit of phasing, and it is flexible for that as well.
And have we thought about what this is going to do for our electric bill going into the future?
Mm-hmm.
Has that been considered in all of this? I don't know if that's a Patrick question or...
Yes, so that is a component of the process actually, is for us to look at the implications of the project that we're recommending onto your utility bills. And with that project that I just showed you of the improved energy conservation measures, the building controls, the building envelope, paired with the other project where you're installing VRF heat pumps in order to improve the indoor air quality, it actually comes out roughly even with a little bit more energy savings. So you should, in theory, be spending less on your utility bills. Yeah.
I can add to that too. Just in general, right, we're creating a solution that decarbonizes our schools, so our boilers will still be used to heat classrooms to an extent until the VRFs can kick in and efficiently, pick up and start heating the classrooms and the building spaces. Annually, we're purchasing over 100,000 gallons of oil. So you can do the math at, $3.50 a gallon. So there's savings from spending on fossil fuels, but those will translate to some extent into energy, into utility expenses. So as Morgan shared, it's not an even exchange. There will be some savings, but it's not as simple as saying we're going to save every dollar that we're, by implementing these solutions. And I like to think of it visually, if we could see, the energy, if you will, that we're using and consuming, and seeing all the holes in our systems, and watching it kind of leak out here and there, and money really go out the windows, we wouldn't sit here and just be okay with it every day, you know what I mean? We go through a budget process where we're nitpicking every penny, and I'm not even, exaggerating. So if we could see the energy, escaping these windows, escaping the ventilation ductwork, all of these things, we'd be going, wow, we're throwing money right out the window. So all of these measures come together as a comprehensive solution to address that and maximize the efficiency of our buildings while also saving actual money. So it's kind of twofold, if that makes any sense.
I'm not an expert in this area, but as I understand it, there's certain temperatures, right, where the heat pump would be more efficient versus a boiler, and this will all be integrated so that those kind of cutoffs and one kicking to it would all be kind of happening automatically, right, integrated.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, and that's why we always recommend that the equipment replacement comes with the controls upgrade, right? Because then you can most efficiently use your new equipment. You don't want heating and cooling equipment to be fighting each other. You don't want different areas to be not optimally controlled. Maybe the moisture is migrating from one area to another, right? So that's why we recommend the comprehensive nature of the suite of solution. And to your point, exactly right. When outside air temperatures are more mild, heat pumps are typically more efficient, right? They are essentially air conditioners that can work either way, in either direction with controls, with proper controls. Modern technology allows heat pump to operate down to 0 degrees. But depending on the economics, because at 0 degrees it might not be efficient, right? So we have that boiler still available as a backup. In fact, all the hot water coils are still in place. We are not removing any of that. So you gain improved redundancy, and you also gain the availability to use either oil heating in the current form or electrified heating. Mass Save, which is a utility incentive program, would like to see as much fossil fuel displaced as possible, right? So to that extent, we're also working with them to help them understand our controls, to help them understand our capabilities, our sizing, all the technical aspects of the solution. So you're absolutely right. Now, with this technology, you have the option to have both electrified heating all the way down to as low as our controls parameters can. We can program it into it, but also have fossil fuel as fully redundant backup.
Sorry, a couple more questions. So we have all this new technology. What are is there training involved with our maintenance people? And also, in addition to that, do you give additional support to this training after the initial training is done? And then thirdly, third question and final one, what about 10 years from now? Or how much is it going to cost to upgrade all of this stuff? Do we have an estimate? Have we even thought about that? Those are my questions.
I will speak to the piece that, yes, we have a training plan. In fact, we have a training plan detailed in the investment grade audit report for anyone who's interested to look into the details of specifically what pieces are included with each measure that we recommend. For the other pieces, Morgan, I'll let you.
Yeah, just as a note again on the training, our goal is to have a long-standing relationship with Acushnet Public Schools. the worst way that we could do that is leave you with a system and not tell you how to run it, operate it, understand it, right? So our job is to make sure that you leave feeling comfortable with what's been installed. And part of that is doing really intense and integral training.
And that's all part of this?
It's all part of it.
Okay.
Some of it is, more related to the control system, but some of it's also related to just the systems in itself. And I will personally say that I have a couple clients that I work with were 10 years, 13 years in, and they said, we just brought someone new on staff, could we do another training? And I said, absolutely. So we block off 4 8 hours and we do a full training where our technicians or our team comes in and sits down with anyone who wants to be trained on the new system, existing system, right? So it really, it's more of an ongoing, we can provide any additional training as it's needed as things arise.
I might also add to that, part of our contract has the measurement and verification component, right? And part of that is to provide the schools with our clients with the information on how their buildings are performing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have vested interest in making sure that the systems are performing as we design them. And so that's the continuous feedback loop, right, to the school district in terms of which systems are performing well, which systems need attention. So that's another, I would say, another avenue where schools can get continuous feedback on the information on how the systems are performing.
And then that other question of 10 years from now or 5 years later.
Oh, you said right. So
technology changes all the time. So.
Oh, completely understand.
Yes.
It really does. So as far as our control systems go, 5 years is not an issue. I don't even think 10 years is an issue. There's always software upgrades because there's data protection and other things that need to be regularly maintained so that it stays safe for everyone. But at some point, every system goes obsolete. They do not consult, unfortunately, me on when they want to make new systems obsolete. But I think I don't see it being within 5 to 10 years that all of a sudden this SC system that we install, which is the main controller, becomes obsolete.
Yes, I am. Listening to the solutions, when we go to a town meeting, there are going to be 50 doubting Thomases on this issue. And we will have 3 minutes in order to convince them, convince the body to support this project. Mm-hmm. So we have to, in your presentation, what building problems are we addressing? How acute? Our experiences, and this is why we want to go ahead with this project, is that the problems are acute, and they are affecting staff, are affecting student performance, are affecting probably student health, and so we've got to address that issue as important, not that we want to have student comfort, nor employee retention. This project will never sell at a town meeting with those type of objectives. Mm-hmm. But objectives is that we're basically addressing some very acute health issues that could in this building, and we want to move forward. Secondly of all, the time is now. Explain why we have to do it now and not delay next year, the year after. Mm-hmm. So I think that in your presentation, and I'm sure that is the main issue. And I think you only got 3 to 5 minutes in order to really put that ball over the fence line.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
So, Mr. Hallcroft, you bring up a great point. As you know, we had mold at the elementary school, and there were people complaining about their health. We had students and staff impacted by that. We obviously want to keep a very healthy environment. Right now, and I'm sure Patrick can get more into the details of this, but we have 40 some odd dehumidifiers working day to day in every single classroom. They're loud. So it's a huge distraction to the teaching and learning. They have to be emptied manually every single day, and they have to, the workers have to come in on the weekends and vacations, overtime, so that they can empty those things and keep those going. So that's a huge concern. Then we have teachers at times, and I don't fault them for this, but they're shutting them off because they're too loud. And then the facility side of things, that's not good, because we have to keep them running to keep the air healthy, right? So it's not efficient, and that's why, I'm a big proponent of this project, because spending 3-point-something million is much better than spending over 100 million on a new school building, which
Correct.
I'd like to hear about how long this will prolong the life of the building. I'd like to hear about the noise level of what it's going to do when we stop at all these individual dehumidifiers from running in the classrooms. That's not a normal classroom environment. When you walk in, we've got fans, we've got dehumidifiers. It's not appropriate for teaching and learning. It's not ideal. So what will this project do for that environment? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I think that is the main issue, and also we've addressed this issue in previous meetings, that we've talked about temperature versus the rate of learning. There's all sorts of research showing that children, if it's too hot, they just don't learn. We're wasting our time trying to teach them.
I can
Okay?
tell you.
And we have to address that issue.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're wasting taxpayers' money if we don't address the environment, the environment and a controlled environment, which we have solutions in great depth.
We have
But we basically
classrooms.
we've got to basically raise the awareness among all citizenry that they're aware of how acute this issue is. This is why we want to move forward.
Yeah, I can tell you that from classroom to classroom, the temperatures vary in both buildings. So you can go into a classroom and people feel the need to actually wear their winter jackets. And then you can go into the very next classroom and it's like a sauna. That is not controlling the temperature right now. So if you could address that today, right now, that would be helpful, I think.
Well, I just wanted to add, you kind of stole my thunder, but I just want to remind people how that's a good thing, right? It means, we all know what we're talking about.
I'm sorry, Patrick.
No, you're doing great too, Mr. Just a reminder how we got here, out of nowhere, we couldn't control the environment, we couldn't control our buildings, and humidity took over, causing problems in the form of mold and discomfort and things like that. We lost staffing, we had student absences, everything costs money, everything impacts teaching and learning. We were fiscally responsible enough to be able to solve the problem temporarily with ESSER funds, that it didn't cost the town a single dollar. It cost us, $300,000 in ESSER funds, but no one complained about that, right? But we combated the problem and we put a Band-Aid solution in place, which still exists. So if anything, we should be commended for that, right? We have dehumidifiers, again, that we purchased on our own, air purifiers that we purchased on our own. We're maintaining them, we're paying for the overtime, we're coming up with all these solutions to continue to operate. But let's face it, it could break at any single time. And when it does, we do not have those ESSER funds to fall back on. We do not have any other solutions. It will be disastrous. And it can happen because, again, this is a Band-Aid problem. So, we got to this point via performance contracting to build a comprehensive solution to take advantage of any and all incentives that are out there related to energy, which you wouldn't get through normal capital procurement. And we're putting our best foot forward. I mean, they're building $100 million, $200 million schools everywhere. MSBA is denying projects at a record pace. This is what fits the mold here, and it's the most equitable solution for us, for the town, to preserve these buildings, to get more life out of it, so we're not looking at, rebuilding.
And I just want to say, the town next door to us had a major fire with a dehumidifier plugged in. We have 40-something dehumidifiers plugged in. They had to cancel school for several days. We don't want to find ourselves in that situation at all. This is just not how our classroom should look.
Well, I was just going to say, so I think going back to it, some of your questions are unanswered about how long will this preserve or prolong the life of our buildings. Yeah, I don't know, Beth or Train, do you have
And the
any
noise too, if you can
feedback?
address the noise.
I mean, the noise is simple, right? We won't have those units in existence in the classroom anymore. There won't be any replacements needed for them. There won't be filter changes. You won't need that labor to maintain it, to empty it, to, work on it. It will all be built into this comprehensive solution that we will build into a maintenance plan with or without the assistance of Train, but with the education on how to and sustain, the equipment that we have so that we don't run into issues. So that in simplest form, there will be no noise in the classroom anymore. But I'll step aside for feedback from the others.
I'll add my perspective to add to everybody's input, right? From the noise perspective, now all the equipment will be centralized in the mechanical room as a properly designed engineering system should be, right? So that in the classroom, the students don't face the distraction. As anybody who works next to window air conditioner would know, right? Airflow, noise, compressors, these are distracting elements. From a maintenance perspective, then we don't have so many distributed systems to take care of, and there's uncertainty in the replacement, the maintenance with all that. From a student learning productivity perspective, right, learning environment, we took into consideration all these considerations to say that this is an indoor air quality improvement measure, not just an add cooling measure, even though it does add cooling, because adding cooling is really the most cost-effective way to control the moisture and to control the indoor learning environment. We've seen in today's meeting how the school district takes pride in developing curriculum, in developing the quality of the teaching staff, right? Equally important is to make sure that the students are at their best, at their most productive when in their learning environment. And that includes so much more than just thermal comfort, which is, cooling, right? A lot of people think of it as cooling, but it's also our solution, part of our controls also as CO2 sensors for each space so that the units know how much CO2 is in the space and whether to increase the outdoor ventilation. Currently, that is done somewhat in an uncontrolled way through opening windows. And with opening windows, you get unfiltered air, you get humid air, you get outside air fighting with your dehumidifiers in all sorts of ways, and that is not good for the students, right, from a health perspective. Now, with the CO2 sensors, we can make sure that the oxygen level in the rooms is optimized for learning environment, right? We can make sure that noise is minimized, right? By removing all the in-room equipment, we can make sure that disruption due to maintenance issues or due to unforeseeable some piece of equipment that breaks down, maintenance must come and fix that, right? With that, ideally, with the new control system, the maintenance staff would have visibility before the teachers even have to make a call, right? And they can proactively fix whatever equipment that needs fixed. So there are a suite of benefits to that, and that all speaks to what people observe as the issue. We do consider the solution in a holistic manner.
I just wanted to open the floor to Ms. Greenblatt, if you had any additional comments as well. I feel like we've been talking, we didn't give you a chance to breathe and talk.
Well, thank you, Morgan. I mean, I think everyone has hit the nail on the head. The building has existing conditions that impacts the indoor environmental quality realized by students and educators. And to the extent we can remedy that situation, remove, as Patrick said, the Band-Aid equipment that is a weak point for failure, for sure, and focus on making the school, the classrooms more productive, more comfortable, more balanced and controlled, certainly should lead to higher scores, if you will, or better education. It's just a better learning environment for students and educators. And as Dr. Bailey has said, preserving the integrity of this building by not allowing the moisture to build up, by maintaining the air quality and environmental quality of the spaces will preserve the integrity of the building structure and potentially avoid what today may be a $100 million school, but tomorrow could certainly be upwards of $150 to $175 million. I mean, it's, as Patrick said, that MSBA is rejecting lots of requests for new schools because the cost was just prohibitive for taxpayers.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Maybe one more question from me, and maybe it's for Dr. Bailey and Mr. McIntyre. So, Mr. Howcroft raises a good point. I think time is limited at the town meeting. It's not really the forum for an informational session. It's a forum to answer a few questions and have a vote. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, at a high level, just what are some of the things that we are thinking about doing so that we can help take our community members along and explain to them why this is so important, would be helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, I was in Dr. Bailey's office, I think, last Friday, and we were trying to map out dates between all our committee meetings, our, negotiation meetings, our budgetary meeting, I don't know where to end, debt exclusion meetings, so on and so forth. But the goal is, the timeline looks like this, that there's a ballot on April 22nd. This project, it's no secret that if we move it forward, it will be by ways of the debt exclusion, which will impact the tax rate. So we want to engage the community, educate the community, and let them know what the impact will be. So the plan would be to engage with the Finance Committee and the Board of Select Board, relatively soon. And then in March, with enough time, have a public hearing to go over exactly what we just did in more depth, with more opportunity for question and answer, and again, educating everybody on the project, on where we started, how we got here, again, why we went the route of performance contracting. So that would be March. And then again, prior to the debt exclusion on the ballot on April 22nd, we would want another one in April for whoever couldn't make it in March, or people that were able to digest it, watch it on TV, come with more questions in April, and then again be able to vote, have an educated vote on the process. So that's what it would look like. If it passed on the ballot, it's still not a sure thing. It would still need to pass at town hall. 2 articles, one to engage in a contract with Train, and then a second article to actually fund the project via debt exclusion. So it is a long road, and it's a short amount of time, but we have the right personnel, we have the right data, we have the right reports to begin to educate everybody with factual information.
We appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, while you're up there, under other items, I would love it if you could go over the solar project, because while we mentioned it a year ago, and then it sort of fell off, we're kind of back to looking at it again. And again, we don't want to go into a huge in-depth discussion tonight about solar, but I wanted Patrick to update the committee on where we're at with the solar project.
Yeah, so, we talked about a power purchase agreement in years past, and Train's here, and we asked them to analyze, put together a solar solution for us through the performance contract as well, to see what was feasible. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to get creative to create some sort of funding offset in this town. We looked at recent reports from the town administrator that show 5, 6, 7, 8 years of history, and the revenue has stayed flat around $500,000 annually. Well, we know, cost of living, inflation, all these other measures are kicking costs way, way up, yet our revenues are just staying here. Everything else is on a trajectory, up. So it's not sustainable. So, we talked about this in the past, and we're reviving it again with new smart incentives that have changed recently. To look at a solar array on campus, a canopy and or roof or both, to bring some offset costs to the town, really, to the schools, however you want to spin it. So again, Train put together a solution, and we realized it's probably not feasible. We were transparent with them through the process. We wanted to entertain any and all options. Owning it just doesn't really make sense for us, between the maintenance, the cost, the infrastructure, the whole 9 yards. So through Select, there's a power purchase agreement where they're essentially leasing the space on our roof and the space in our parking lot to generate solar, and then they sell it back to us at a discounted rate that we would normally pay, our Eversource or Constellation, our supplier delivery. So I'm going to skip through. We don't need to go through the spiel that they would have given, they being Select, but a map of the two solutions look accordingly. So on the left would be a canopy over the middle parking lot. We talked about how that would also protect, staff and students from elements, parking. There'd be a water management system with it for proper drainage and things like that. We're constantly back and forth between both schools, so it provides protection that way, but it also, it's going to generate energy for us and money for us to save on our energy bills. And then on the right would be the solution on the AES roof. Again, with all warranties intact, things like that. We can get into those details at a later point. But at the end of the day, they're forecasting for just the AES roof with prevailing wage. And, I'd assume that these numbers are inflated to some extent. It's based on a utility escalation of 2.5% annually. We don't really know what that's going to look like in 25 years. But assuming such, we would save $1.7 million on our energy. And you can see that it kind of escalates because we would get a fixed payment, if you will, or fixed rate at 0.04 cents, or 4 cents, excuse me, versus the projected 15 cents, and you'd save 50,000 all the way up to 90,000 in the last year if projections were to go accordingly. There's debate on whether these projects need to be prevailing wage or not. Ultimately, it would be up to town council on how they want to proceed and how they made that decision. Without prevailing wage, they'd be looking at a 1.85, if I can read that correctly, savings on the same roof. So without prevailing wage, you would gain about, if I can see that clearly, $150,000 to $200,000 in savings.
Can you explain what prevailing wage is?
Prevailing wage is just the labor rate that the state requires you to pay workers based on, the region that you work in, so that these companies can't grab these jobs and then just shortchange their workers. They take an average, I guess, if you will, and say if you are to contract one of these jobs or win one of these jobs, you have to pay your workers at a set rate, that's not below this amount. And then we're required actually to track their payroll records and things like that to make sure that they're following accordingly. So without prevailing wage, they obviously can pay their workers what they want. With prevailing wage, there's potentially an escalation in the cost or an increase in the cost. And then here's the canopy project with forecast about $1.2 million in savings with prevailing wage, or 1.5 without. Again, I'm struggling to see, but that's what it looks like. So you combine the two projects, we're talking about potentially $3 million in savings over 25 years, however you want to spin it, for the school or for the town, and I think it's time to bring this conversation back. It was approved to enter into a contract with Select at the May 2023 town meeting, so that article existed, it was voted. Next steps would be to sign a letter of intent, which is not legally binding. It's just, we're going to put our best faith forward in finding a project that works for us. And they would begin, the electrical engineering, utility applications, contract process, so on and so forth. And then from there, you would sign a contract and you would begin construction and things like that. I believe the timeline would not be until the summer of 2026 at this point. But again, I think we have to consider everything on the table with the growing expenses in the town and school district and the lack of revenue growth. And again, this wouldn't be a cash payment that we would receive, it's a savings. So it would be a reduction to a budget line, essentially. But, nonetheless, $3 million over 25 years is substantial when we're talking about putting forward a $4 million project over 20 years. You could argue that it's close to a wash. So we wanted to bring that back up. We've attached this report in board docs for your review. There's draft letters of intent. What I'm working with is discussions with the town to see what sort of capital reserves there are to be able to actually afford, having Beth Greenblatt with Beacon Integrated Services review these proposals and contracts, which again, she's an expert in, to make sure the forecasting is right, the language is what we need it to be, and then in a position to move forward with some sort of project if that's in the interest of the school committee.
If the school signs a letter of intent and then the project doesn't move forward for some reason, are we committed to anything, any penalty?
No, again, it's not legally binding, it's just, it's the presumption that we will engage with you if, you know, everything works out, and it kind of kickstarts them to start the process and pulling permits and getting in line with Eversource and all those things for interconnectivity. And then from there, you know, we would negotiate contracts, our council would look at it, town council would look at it, make sure all the terms are right, discuss prevailing wage or not prevailing wage, and then once that contract's signed, that's it.
So what are the next steps? Are we going to bring this back to us?
So I think, you know, we can talk about this a little more in a workshop or off record without a quorum, and put forth, or at least we can put it on the agenda for next meeting to vote on a letter of intent to be signed or not to be signed, and then we can have discussions at that point, if that makes sense. We can also bring in Select again if you want to hear anything from them. We can drag Beth into this, whatever way we want to go with it.
So
Again, to me, it's opportunity.
Right.
I would ask the other committee members, it's been a while since we talked
Yeah.
about it, so it might be good to refresh.
Yeah.
I remember that we did bring this to the town, and the town gave us the blessing to explore a plan, right? So I think, why not explore our options and just get some more information?
Yeah, and the town, you know, the town is still well aware of it. I mean, I'm not sure how close it is on their radar, but I know
It's been
the
a
town
while.
administrator ran into Select at an MMA meeting, you know, there was a little bit of discussion there. I know when we originally brought this up, they were kind of reaching out to me to say, hey, can you get Select to talk about adding this to a couple of our town buildings or the golf parking lot or so on and so forth. So, you know, I hope that the conversation would still be cordial and you know, they'd be interested too, but it'd be tough to understand and know when, again, it's
Exactly.
savings
Yeah.
for us,
Potential savings,
for us
yes.
being the community, the town, the district.
So would you like a presentation again from Select? I know the project looks a little bit different, right? It's a little modified, but I'm under the understanding that it would require school committee signature for that letter of intent, also the town, right?
Yeah, so I believe it'd be a letter of intent from us, a letter of intent from the select board, and then ultimately the select board would be signing the agreement, the contract, based on how the article went forth in 2023.
If we're just voting on a letter of intent, and the letter of intent does not lock us into anything, I don't feel personally, if others feel differently, I'm happy that we need another presentation. I feel like that presentation probably needs to come before we go any further beyond the letter of intent.
Okay.
That's my
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's not waste any more time.
Yeah.
So do you want to put it on the agenda just for that vote then, for the letter of intent? And we'll have that ready for you in March?
Sure.
Patrick?
And then after we'll have a presentation? Because I mean, I'd like to hear it. I mean, it's like a refresh is good.
I know in the past, we talked about wanting to see, you know, better renderings of what it would look
Right,
like
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
campus. You know, now we're adding a roof in, we haven't really had much discussion
Right.
on that outside of train and equipment with train and solar with train. You know, if the performance contract moves forward, the air quality project moves forward, there's going to be equipment on some of the space of that roof that I imagine
Right.
Select's going to be planning on adding solar, so there would need to be a collaboration. So definitely, you know, it's not sign and do, there's more work to be done. But yeah, I don't think a letter of intent hurts, we can put that
Yeah, we'll
forward.
put it on the agenda.
And I can talk to Select about elaborating on the project and the process in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Okay, next, the school calendar. I really didn't think we would vote on this tonight, as I discussed with the chair. This is the proposed calendar. I did notice one mistake in the June. You see this, the 16th is highlighted as early release last day, and then to the right it says 6/17, so we just have to make that correction. If anybody else notices anything, this has been vetted out for the school system, and then you would have a month to look this over, and then my plan would be to have this on the March agenda for a vote, for a final vote.
Dr. Bailey, are there any like major change, this looks like relatively the very similar timeline
Yes.
to last year, I presume, no major changes?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that people may like is we actually would have the Christmas vacation, the 2 weeks because of the way the holiday falls between Christmas and New Year's. That's a little more time than what we typically have, but I didn't think it made sense to open the building and keep the building for one day, you know what I mean? So other than that, we have the town elections in April, and that's that. But yeah, it's, as you said, it's relatively the same start.
I was
And
gonna say, did school
hopefully
start on the 27th? When did school start this year?
It was right around there.
on the Wednesday, the same, it's always the last Wednesday in August, or it has been for several years now. The teachers start on the Monday and the Tuesday, and the students return on that Wednesday.
Okay. So we'll plan to bring this back for a vote
Yeah, and if
in March.
anybody has any questions, concerns, comments, please, you feel free to email me or call me prior to the meeting, but my intent will be to put it on the March agenda for a vote. Any questions on that? Okay, and then under one more other items, we talked about this at policy subcommittee meeting, and I just thought it was important to bring up to the full committee that the Attorney General's office is going to be drafting legislation to ban cell phones K to 12. And we know that cell phones are a huge distraction in our schools, mostly for us, it's mostly at the middle school, huge distraction. Our plan right now is, I mean, we enforce it obviously, but our plan right now is to work on some logistics with the administrators, continue to enforce it with students, but really, you know, we'd like to see how this gets rolled out. There are some guidelines coming down from the state. There's no big presentation on this at this moment, but just to let you all know, this is what we're looking at. And I did bring it up with our policy subcommittee meeting, at the meeting recently, and that is the plan as of right now.
Do you have a sense of
Well, I would be in this, I would like to start working on it right now and implement it.
What's taking them so long?
Right. We don't have to wait for the state.
yesterday.
We honestly don't have to wait for the state. We can create this policy before the state implements any of theirs. I was thinking personally that we should work on it as Dr. Bailey is doing with the teachers and the principals and get a plan in place to have it implemented for September, regardless of what the state does, because we all know the state takes forever. So I feel like the sooner the better for the cell phone policy. It's really important to me as a parent to get these cell phones out of the school.
Exactly.
And if I could just ask, I know the public is watching this now, but parents, if you could just refrain from calling your kids during the school day, that would be appreciated. Because I mean, that
Or
happens
texting.
more than you would realize. And again, it's a distraction to the learning environment. And you can most certainly call the offices at either school at any time. Obviously, if there's an emergency, please call us. We will get your student a message, but it's just we find them, not just the parents calling and contacting the students, but it's student to student. It's a lot of distraction and drama that we don't need. So yes, we are working on it, and there's going to be legislation, my understanding. So I just wanted to let the full committee know that this is the plan, and there's different ways to go about this, but this is something that we will certainly be in discussion with the policy subcommittee meeting as well as our administration to find out the best way, and parents and kids. I mean, we want to know what is the best way to do this. I know that people get very comfortable and attached to their cell phones, you know.
I wanted to underscore Mrs. Gomes, the points you raised, that we should have a full implementation by September 1st. I think that's my first.
Stress me out.
Get her done, get her done.
Stress me out.
Rip the Band-Aid off. I agree.
I think it's doable. And we will definitely report back to you prior to the beginning of next school year, if not by the end of this school year, with where we're at. So I know the principals are in the audience right now. They're taking it all in, they're listening, and they know that it's...
Sarah's taking all the phone calls.
It's
I start a hotline for all the parents that are sick.
Oh, okay.
Their children.
Yeah, Sarah's in
They
charge
can
of that.
always call the school, and I think a lot of parents forget that, and the child can call home if there's...
Yes, on our school office phone.
I can honestly say, my son is not allowed to use his phone in the school, and he calls me maybe every other week telling me he doesn't have SSCA, or he's not feeling too well, or, I mean, not that every child can do that, but I mean, there is communication between the home and students if needed. They don't need their cell phone. We never had cell phones, right?
No, we
Parents,
didn't.
we never did.
And Old Colony does not allow cell phones in their school, so my son goes to Old Colony, he doesn't even bring his phone with him. Doesn't need it. He's 16.
And the reception is horrible anyway,
Yeah,
so...
it's bad.
we don't-
I get annoyed with it when I'm driving and my radio shuts off, but that's another story.
So I just wanted to bring that to light, and we'll report back on that, and that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you.
So, Mr. McIntyre, let's do it.
There's nothing. We still have the phone.
All right. Well done, Business manager report, structured as usual. FY25 budget, chugging along. I want to skip over that and sort of highlight the FY26 budget process. We are putting the finishing touches on the superintendent's recommended budget so that we can meet with budget subcommittee one or two more times, loop the finance committee in on that, and then be able to present at our next meeting the superintendent's recommended budget. Full transparency, once the departmental requests came in to sort of build our budget, they came in at a little north of 11%. Some of those had placeholders in there, so we're not considering that reductions or cuts, but by the time everything's settled, it was closer to 9.5%. Dr. Bailey and I had preliminary cut those figures down to somewhere in the 6% range, and then we presented to the budget subcommittee and just kind of talked about the challenges with the town finances and where we're at, and that we got to figure something out one way or the other. And we've been advised by budget subcommittee to try to get under 5%. And our focus is on keeping flat costs for PD, for supplies, if not reducing it somewhat, and really just maintaining level services if we can, knowing that a lot of our costs are fixed. Again, that's unfortunately the nature of our budget. Whether it's
keeping the quality of our education, right? Because why go back? We're not going backwards.
right. So I mean, the bus increases were about 11% on its own. Our high school tuition increases are 4 to 5% every year out of our control. We have to send our kids somewhere. Contractual increases with our bargaining units, those are fixed. Special ed costs mandated and rising. So there's not a lot there. So we're working through that. We have a budget subcommittee at the end of the month, actually, which again, we hope to be below that number and present. But it's
Sorry to interrupt, but is the
okay.
town aware of what you just explained to us, that, we started here, we went here, we're now at here, and we're trying to, have they been updated as we've been going?
Generally, we don't update them this early in the process. It's more so once we have the superintendent's recommended budget, but, we have the chair of the finance committee and co-chair attend a budget subcommittee meeting where we talk about it, and a lot of it's about our budget, but a lot of it's just about the components of the town and what the other departments are doing, where our revenue growth is or isn't, and where can we get creative to sort of build something that's sustainable? Because right now, whether in our control or not, it's not sustainable because we have fixed costs that increase, and again, everything else is staying relatively flat. You heard it earlier in the meeting tonight, we're getting creative to try to find these open source free curriculums to be able to implement and get buy-in and see results, so that we can cut the three-year $80,000, $100,000 curriculums, but it takes time, it takes personnel, it takes coaches, it takes buy-in. It's a collaborative effort. So, we have to try to do all these things within our means, but we can't do it all in 1 year. Chapter 78 staying low, we're hold harmless. You guys have heard me say that for 3 years now. So we got minimum pupil aid is what's projected. I have the wrong figures here, I apologize, but it's a 1.1% increase. We're talking $80,000 more than last year that we're getting. That doesn't cover anything. And then they're expecting the town to pony up a larger share of the foundation budget. And it's setting ourselves up for challenging times.
Every year it seems to get harder.
This is maybe the silliest question I've ever asked, but, and I know the last time or a couple of years ago when we were doing transportation, we did make some changes to maybe the types of bus that we were willing to have. I know how this works, but is there other changes, anything we can do that would open it up to make that process more competitive? Because it's just the transportation costs, frankly.
So transportation's tough.
I know, it's a silly question.
There's sort of, the business manager world, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we kind of assume that there's these invisible lines drawn in the sand where other bus companies aren't going to bid on other districts if they haven't had them in the past. So we're kind of at the control of the bus company. We tried to get creative to change the tiering structure of our buses. I added a fuel escalation charge, increase escalation or de-escalation, which has saved us, $4,000 to date this year. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but guess what? It's savings, and we're trying something different. But I mean, we're even seeing just the rates that they give us for field trips. $3,000 to go to Boston and back with a couple of buses, and now we're going, wow, we have to evaluate where we put our kids on field trips to. So unfortunately, the number of buses that we contract is pretty much the minimum because of our student population and the timing that we have to get students here, then to AES, then we have our high schools. In the future, if we can grab a community to kind of put out a regional bid, if you will, to have one company come in and know they're going to get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 schools, that's opportunity, but I don't know, I can't promise you that that's going to decrease the rates. It might increase them because, they're the only company big enough to handle it all, and now, we just don't know. It's uncharted territory.
We're thinking of everything when it comes to transportation, and we're just very limited.
We've talked about student fees, and I know, the school committee doesn't necessarily want to entertain those, but you can charge for grade 7 and grade 8 bus transportation. Anything else, 6th grade or lower is you can't charge. By law, it has to be free. So, that's a direction that we could take if desperate, but we're trying everything, and we want to maintain the level of services. We're trying to bring PD in-house so that we're doing more, training each other.
Train the trainer.
Train the trainer, thank you. Teach the teacher.
And I want to be clear, I didn't ask the question thinking that we weren't looking at alternatives, but the cost of the transportation just continues to rise. It's becoming astronomical.
Unfortunately, I think a large piece of it has to do with the high schools. We have to transport students to New Bedford and Fairhaven at our expense. We have high school tuition contracts expiring. Maybe there's opportunity there to share the cost or reduce the cost. Again, I think we have to have those internal discussions.
There's the percentage rolled into the tuition agreement, for people, right? We're paying schools to send our kids there, and then we're paying for the transportation to also get them there.
Separately, yeah.
So maybe there's an opportunity in these next contract negotiations to roll in some kind of percentage per student that contributes to the cost of their transportation as well.
Yeah, it will always be our responsibility to transport our residents.
It's a great idea.
I don't know.
I don't know if that would make
still
sense, if it's
Don't forget,
feasible.
those same schools are having the same budget problems we
Exactly.
have.
I understand that, yeah, I understand that, yeah. So
We'll see, we're looking at every, we're starting our own company,
Well,
bus
no, like,
company.
yeah, we could do that too, but
Why not?
I don't know.
Who's
do
got
it.
the
You
have
capital?
nothing better
Who's
to
got
do,
the
Patrick?
capital
Why?
up front to buy and lease buses and hire
And to get some
drivers?
investors.
We'll buy a bus every year.
But, you know, moving forward to, you know, the state, the legislature is looking at the Chapter 70 formula, trying to find holes and things to fix these budgetary issues for towns and schools alike, so. It's challenging, but if anything, anybody listening, we're doing everything we can. And, you know, I think we're doing our part, truly. We can't control how much money we make, or the town makes, but we can control our costs, and we've kept those down over, you know, looking back, you know, the past few years, so. And we continue to explore other opportunities.
Yeah, we have at least 2 more meetings for the budget subcommittee to go through things, and we're gonna make some tough decisions, but I mean, we have to make sure that, you know, we're working with the town, and as long as we're transparent and the town is completely transparent on their financials, you know, hopefully we can work something out.
No, and I think that's an important point too. You know, we're looking at the vacancies over in town hall and looking around asking questions about the figures that they have, and there's only a limited amount of personnel that can answer those questions. We have to trust them as they have to trust us, and then we have to collaborate to find a way to move things forward.
So that raises another question, please, and I apologize, I didn't see if it was in the fine print in your business manager report. Do we have like a town accountant or?
We still do not have a town accountant or an assistant town accountant or an assistant treasurer, as far as I know.
Which begs the question, like, how can any department really budget anything when we don't know what's happening at the town level? I mean, let's just be transparent.
Let me clarify. I believe we have a part-time town accountant working, but
Makes me feel better.
not, it was to close out the books for FY24 and submit the balance sheet and things like that. I don't know the extent of what else they're doing or if they're doing.
And
With the
Patrick,
lack of staff, can they certify free cash?
I believe that's what this individual was brought on to help make sure they could tackle. I don't want to speak for the town. I don't truly know, and I don't want to misinform.
and I'm going to presume, Patrick, that perhaps that puts some additional burden on you, not the fact that they don't.
Well, and all of us trying to figure out a budget and what I mean, you don't want to we're making cuts now that are hard and that we shouldn't be making if we don't have to. So we really need to know what these numbers are, you know, to be able to, you know, make
Nice
decisions.
numbers, you want to get a sense of what the, across departments,
Right, just
what percentage
transparency
increase they want us to stay
in the
at.
town of what's coming in, where everything's going, like what the preliminary
Confident
things,
that
Yeah, usually
the
they'll-
numbers
what
Trying
they're
to give us
telling
a
us is
range,
really
right.
happening, you know,
I think
so
that's the
we're not.
value in the joint meeting that we have with the finance and select board is to kind of hear it all at that point in time, whether that's too late, you know.
Well,
is
we usually have
available,
a preliminary
but-
with the finance committee,
Which
which
is-
is very helpful but at this point for this year, for me, I'm not sure they know what's happening, because again, we don't have the staff there looking at all the figures, so that's something that we'll be discussing at that meeting.
When is that meeting? Oh, that is this week, right?
When are we doing that budget?
Or no?
We don't know yet,
Yeah,
right?
next budget subcommittee is February 25th.
Oh, okay. But
And
there
we're
is
working
something
with the
this
date
week,
with the
yeah.
finance
Oh,
committee to see if they can
finance.
attend that.
Got it.
Um, We are attending the finance committee meeting tomorrow night. Dr. Bailey and myself to talk about the debt exclusion specifically, I
Right.
believe.
And I'll be there as well.
So I'll parlay right into that unless there's other questions around the 26 budget. So we obviously had Train's presentation tonight, and we have some planning to do to make sure we can inform the public, you know, here on out, and not only the public, the finance committee, the select board, each other, and we're going to keep working at that, you know, while we balance all these other competing priorities. I have been kind of racking the numbers. I don't want to, you know, go on record officially that it's set at this, but looking at the equation, the assessed value in the town, and you know, a preliminary forecast of what the amortization schedule would look like for borrowing, the $4.2 million being the ceiling that we're willing to borrow, It's about $18 per 100,000 assessed value home. So, if the median in town, I believe, is $400,000 to $450,000 home. So the impact as a tax increase would be about $80 a year for an individual.
For 20 years.
Per year, so.
Per year,
$80
for 20,
per
Yeah.
right.
Well, it would actually decrease
Right.
year over year because the highest, this is their first year with the highest principal amount, and as you pay it down,
Okay.
it will dwindle that in the back half of this borrowing, it would be minuscule, but, we have to be sensitive to everybody's, ability to afford even a dollar change. And I want to make sure we get those numbers right before, we put anything out there. And again, it's tough not being able to work with the personnel in the town to be able to do so, but we've had conversations with the town administrator, the town clerk, the town assessor, and we're trying to dial it in collectively, collaboratively. So that's on the train project and debt exclusion front. We also know we have a failing wall/roof in our gym closet over at AES. We've known that for about a year now, and we've been working towards a solution. We've tried different things like recaulking, coating, different measures. We found records that this has been existing since 2004. We're stuck to deal with it. We had Gale Associates come in and actually cut out the brick. We've talked about this. They found that the three-wall flashing behind the brick was actually done incorrectly when it was installed. And because we're not experts in designing a solution, you have to go towards a design build procurement. So they're the engineers. They saw what it looked like. They quoted us that for $40,500, the small price of $40,500, they'll actually engineer the solution, bid it out, subcontract the work, but the missing component is the cost of construction. So, they would do all of that, they would own the project, they'd see it through to the end, make sure everything is done up to spec, but we don't know what the true cost of the project would be until those bids came in.
Can they give us have they given us an idea?
I think in the meetings that we discussed, they said easily, $100,000, just because the linear footage of that closet and the flashing that they saw existing.
So 40 plus
So
another.
40 would commit us to just getting the information, and then if we don't have 100,000 plus, or whatever the ballpark amount is.
Six figures, I don't know.
To address,
100, but
to
I think it
address,
was-
yeah, sure, so to
Yeah.
address the project, then we just paid $40,000 for information. So we need to discuss whether, we take that into consideration as a capital ask, or see if there's reserve somewhere, but again, this is, water seeping into our buildings due to poor construction in the past, which, if it was addressed timely, or noticed timely, or reported timely, we probably would have been covered under warranty. So that's another battle. And then we talked about a potential solar array with Select, which again, maybe that helps pay for the closet at a minimum.
Maybe put a solar panel on the building.
We're trying to pull out all the stops, so.
Not outside the box.
I'd argue that we've seen our fair share of sideways rain, that,
Yeah, that's creative, Sarah.
It is.
Thinking outside the box.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion to adjourn?
Wow.
Or would they-
All right.
That was all I had, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
I have one update, but are there any other school committee reports?
There's not.
Oh, no, that's part of our
Packet.
Oh, can I just say one thing about the shoe drive?
Go ahead.
We are still having the Acushnet PTO shoe drive for the 8th grade. People can bring their gently used shoes or new shoes to the front door of Ford Middle School, and they'll be let in to put in the donation boxes there, and that is going to be happening through February 28th. So please bring in your gently used shoes or new shoes for us to raise some money for our Ford Middle School 8th grade.
So I would just say that negotiations are ongoing with the ATA, so we continue to meet with the predetermined schedule that we set at the beginning of the process, and so there's no new updates at this point, but when there is, obviously, we will update everybody on where that stands. Go ahead.
Tomorrow is also Dine Out Night at Wendy's in Fairhaven for the Ford Middle School 8th grade. So anywhere from 5 to 8, please have dinner at Wendy's, and 20% of your order will go directly to our 8th grade for the dance and the ceremony and all that fun stuff. So tomorrow, 5 to 8,
Everybody get a
Yeah.
frosty.
Wendy's in Fairhaven. Thank
Caramel
you.
Frosties.
Now I'm done.
Really?
Okay,
Behave.
Fairhaven.
Okay.
Wendy's Fairhaven.
All right, that's tomorrow?
Tomorrow, 5 to 8.
Okay.
You don't need a flyer.
okay, are you done?
Do we have to say it? Or they just do it in the whole? All right.
All right, so we
Okay.
had a communication information packet, a number of things in there, technology update, personnel report, newsletter, so on and so forth. We will not have executive session, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move.
Second.
We'll do a roll call.
Mr. Hood?
Yeah.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Mrs. Gold?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
And Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
You're on the game.
Meeting is adjourned.